Hi, this is another Member Mission present from Member Mission, and this is Cindy Green, who spent, well, some 10 days with just one person in Kenya, and before that and after, she has been working with her husband a living place for intellectually disabled, physically disabled people. And she has 6 children, and the youngest is 17, just out of high school, and the oldest is 31, 32. So we're going to dive right in. We're so glad to meet you and have you tell your story, Cindy. Tell me, what was some of the things going on in the world that led you to want to sign up for this kind of a stint?
Well, Wayne, thank you for asking me, number one. And number two, that's a pretty profound question for me. What was going on in the world? It was more or less a double-edged sword. I had accomplished the opportunity to obtain my nursing degree as a mother of 3 at the time. And getting an education in the United States is fairly easy if you persevere. Now, funding is always an issue, and I was able to do that. Okay, funding was always an issue, and I was able to do that. We have things available to us despite what our gender may be, age, race. If you just persevere, you can usually make that happen. And I really felt led that I got my nursing degree at the age of 31, and I had 3 children, and I knew that that was a way I could financially meet the needs of my children. As time went by, 2 or 3 years later, I remarried, and we obtained our 2 sons. I was given my 2 sons in our marriage, and it was a wonderful wedding gift, and then we went on to have 1 more child. During this time, I worked in the hospital as a labor and delivery nurse, med-surg nurse, rehab nurse. Then I did some case management, and my husband decided that he was probably a better employer than an employee. We opened up our ICF facilities. All of this under very pressing circumstances. It should never have worked out, but it was exactly what God wanted. And every time a roadblock got thrown in the way, it was another way for him to show that he was behind all of this, because they were impossible things. We had rotten credit, we had no money, and today we now have 7 facilities, and we're on the way with it. Just one person came about because I had worked my way out of...
And let me say that this just one person, as you're talking, is really part of our common mission to making the world more loving and more just. And so I'd like to hear what it is you did in those 10 days with the women that you met with in Kenya, working on their issues as women.
Well, the Just One Person nonprofit fell into my life philosophy. Their idea is to affect the world by meeting the needs of one person and allowing that one person to meet the needs effectively meet others. And it was a whole philosophical issue that really fell into alignment with me. What they did was, it's a very small nonprofit group. It's run and organized by women. Kenya is a patriarchal system, not a matriarchal system, and it's still a male-dominated environment, which is fine. It's their culture, and it's for them to decide whether that works or not. So we go over this Just One Person, and what they do is...
Let's hear what you did, 2 or 3 things that you did.
What I did was they asked me, as a nurse and as a labor and delivery nurse, I was perfectly groomed for this. I'm a mother of 6, they have large families, I'm a businesswoman, I love chickens, they love chickens. All of this came into alignment for me. And I went over and I was able to offer education to small villages with women on labor and delivery, what happens with their body. They know how to deliver a baby, but they don't know what that looks like inside. And we have access to so much material that educates us on it. And I was able to photocopy things, leave them pictures, leave them written information. They adore books. They highly value education. And the belief is, if you can teach a single woman to read, her entire environment, her culture is forced to change, because you've empowered that woman from that point forward. And she's going to empower her family, and she's going to empower the men she raises and the men that are around her.
Now, I would imagine that teaching her to read them to read was beyond you, but you must have focused on particular issues.
It is. Education is highly valued. And so just one person does just this. They take out, these girls apply, they scholarship them, but where they're unique is they come in and they look at the culture and they say, let's look at the big picture. It's one thing to offer an education, to give an education, but how do we value that? We rarely value things that we're just given. We often value things that we have to work for. So there's some ownership involved. The girl herself has a small portion that she must participate in. The family has to participate in, even if it's only able to come up with $50 or $1 a year. They all have to work together, so there's a whole tribal value in it. And once you help get her into school, then she meets and we help continue that support and watch that.
And what you worked on in particular was what happens in conception and during the period of gestation and the like.
Sure. And they didn't know. You know, they understand babies are very important. They highly value family. This is a very family-oriented culture. Even if you're not blood related, you're somehow related in their culture. So to cut you off from that family, from that culture, is really a bad idea.
Now, aside from this, what other things did you teach them on, or did this take the 10 full days you had with them?
It did. We went in and I looked and helped leave material on nutrition, which wasn't telling them how to do it, but it was more about offering ideas of what they had there that they may or may not want to integrate in. It's like, take what you like and leave the rest.
Sure.
And one of my prayers going in, because I felt so profoundly led to do this, was to let me do no harm. I wasn't there to force a change. I was there to offer information and accept what they wanted or didn't want. And none of that was on my shoulders. I really felt that it was an idea that it was God's job to do that. It was God's job to take it forward and to change it, not me. I wasn't there to slam the gospel down their throat. I was there to be a living example of being loving and kind, non-judgmental, and that was very, very easy. They were a loving culture. Every tribe had a 30 to 45-minute present. I mean, they sang, they gave poetry, they offered me something to eat and drink that often meant that they did not have something to eat and drink that day.
What you're describing sounds like their response was very positive.
It was incredible. It was. I would go back in a heartbeat. I would go back in a moment. Still had a daughter in high school, and I would love to take every one of my daughters there to see that you can always do something. You can always pick up 4 pieces of trash on the ground, and you can always offer something that may change somebody else's life. I've been given so much.
And so what did this do for you?
I came home not feeling guilty. I was really amazed at that. I didn't think I had to join a convent, sell everything, leave, become. But I do know that it impacted me in a way that I came back extremely appreciative of the opportunities I have to change my life. They are a country of great hope and little expectation. Their government gives them zero, nothing. And I came back going, and yet they are happy, loving, joyous, and free. And that's how I want to live my life, with an expectation that nothing is owed me, but I have the opportunity to change so much if I just relax and let it happen. God will do the work. I just have to let Him. I'm often trying to pick it up and tell Him I know a better way of how to doing it, and that often has never worked out well for me.
Yes. And tell me, what is there a follow-up needed? What do you see ought to follow?
On a follow-up basis, I think continue with education, keeping it simple, keeping it within the 10 to 15-minute range. Pictures are universal. Those are wonderful. Not providing everything. They don't want to be given everything. They want to do it for themselves. They just want the tools to do that. They love Americans. They love Americans. But they don't want us throwing money at them. They really want more of our time than they want our cash. They're hardworking, very hardworking individuals, and seeing the bigger picture, appreciating the culture, and seeing that for the things we're trying to do a short-term fix on, there's often long-term repercussions that we're not looking at. And I think we're such a people now that we don't have to worry about where our next meal is coming from or our shelter, that we can stand back and say, how will this small resolution impact on a larger scale. It's sort of like dropping a pebble into the water. Where will that wave end? How big will that wave be? And just sitting back and asking them, what does this look like for you and your culture? And that's how I see. It's not just continuing to fund another mission or another orphanage. Orphanages are big money in Kenya. This is why they don't want their children adopted out, because lots of funding comes in. And we can cause more problems than we're fixing. It helps my heart feel better for the moment, but it may not help the country and the child in the long run.
You've shared lots for us to think on, Cindy. Thanks so much.
Thank you for
And may
asking.
God continue to bless Just for One and whatever work you find yourself doing. Thanks so much.
I appreciate the opportunity.